All right, we just finished up. I say we just finished up at the end of the year last year. We all read this book, and I know it was really enjoyable, But there was parts that were good, and that's what I hope to pull out a few parts out of the first two chapters that I thought was something that we can really use as educators. And I know some of the stuff in the book seemed like it was, way out of our league. I think we all talked about for a long time about the wealth issue. In the book, in the chapter, it asks, what do you think is being wealthy? Anybody remember? I know Coach Matt, so you go ahead and what do you remember? What it said that one of the things, criteria for being wealthy?
On a private plane, stuff like that. It was stuff that was
private plane, and you flew out at night to a different country to eat dinner. That was one of the things for being wealthy. Well, if that's the case, then we don't know anybody wealthy. I don't. Maybe some of y'all fly out to other countries, and you can order in multiple languages. So some of that stuff really don't apply to us here in Spring Garden. But I thought some of the things that I want to talk about this morning, just a few things, a short slideshow for you here. Just pull out a few of the things I think apply to us here at Spring Garden. But a few questions. How can having a framework of poverty help us better understand our students living in poverty? Secondly, how does poverty affect our students' learning? And what can we do as educators to ensure their success? Now, I know you, just like myself, every day you have a classroom full of kids that you wonder what they come from, and you also struggle with teaching them. Okay, anybody struggle with teaching those kids? Whether it's behavioral issues, whether you get to the point where they're not doing their work and you're just like, go to sleep. That's bad when you get to the point like that, okay? But we got to keep from getting there. We've got to think about where these kids come from, home life, those situations. And most of us in here, I'll say most of us probably did not experience the type of home life that these kids have. So we can't really get a full understanding of it. So that's really the thing that I want to talk about. How can we use our knowledge about poverty? How can it change the way that we teach in the classroom? So two types of poverty. Okay, situational poverty is something, a life event that happens that causes maybe somebody plunge into the poverty. Maybe they're not in the level of poverty. Maybe they're lower middle class, but something catastrophic happens, sends them into the poverty bracket. Then you have the generational poverty. That is a family that has been in poverty, obviously, for several generations, and it's affected them in multiple areas. Okay? So, question for us here, and this does merit a response. So, teachers here at Spring Garden, what do you think that we see the most? Generational poverty or situational poverty? Generational. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be overwhelming. Okay. So what is something that you see that sends people into situational poverty? What type of event do you think is most catastrophic?
Our plant closes, losing jobs, something like that.
Think about how many jobs there are not in our area. Good paying jobs. Most of our kids, I think a lot of our people drive to Lincoln, maybe Anniston, Rome. There's no jobs in Spring Garden as far as commercial. Piedmont Center is not really booming with jobs, so we're in a tough economic area for people to get good paying jobs, to get them into even lower middle class. So a few key points to understanding poverty that Dr. Payne points out is poverty is relative. It occurs in all races. And her work is based on patterns, and all patterns have exceptions. Now, here at Spring Garden, we're not very ethnically diverse, with a majority of Caucasian in our school system. So, ethnically, we don't see that. But does that mean that we don't have a diverse culture? No, there's different ways to be diverse other than race. Okay, and what we're looking at here is poverty. That is our biggest standard that sets our kids apart. Is the classes, wealth classes, okay? So, and this is what we're going to look at. Now, I thought this chart, okay, we're going to look at a chart in the book. I thought this was the most interesting thing in this book. And I really probably got more from the chart than I did from a lot of the readings, I thought. But some of the things that we value from different classes. If you're in the lower class, survival, relationships, and entertainment, okay? I personally see myself in the middle class. Because we value, I say we, I'm saying most of us throw ourselves in the middle class. We value work and how we achieve. Everybody in this room right here went to college to achieve, a standard. So We're based on achievement and material security, okay? And this will mean more when we look at this chart a little bit more in detail. Upper class, we're politically minded, more financially minded, investing, okay? And then social connections, who you know. Can some of those cross classes? Can some of these things, could we cross some of these classes? Yeah, of course. Okay, but I think that's pretty right on. I mean, that's pretty dead on the classes for the most part. So I want to look a little bit more in detail. If you got your book, there's a few here scattered around. I know on page 54. Yeah, here's the bigger chart, and I just highlighted 3 things that I wanted to point out real quick. This separates classes. Okay, money, with money as a topic. Okay, people in poverty, and I think this is a good time of year to talk about money because people are getting their taxes back. And this has been the conversation at the lunch table several days. People getting their taxes back early. So, people in poverty, what are they doing with their tax money, and how much money do they get back? Well, we've been talking about this, so don't shy away from it now. If you are in the lower class, are they getting good returns on their taxes? Oh yeah. Yeah, unearned income. So what do they do with that money?
Go on trips.
Go on trips. What else?
Four-wheelers.
Four-wheelers. Entertainment. They get new things. I mean, they got things. I'm like, man, you got a $900 piece of electronic device right there. I would love to have. So with that, middle class, what do we do if we get money back? Now,
Bills.
yeah, okay, I'm going to put this towards my college payments. I'm going to put this towards this bill. We think about, and that's what it nails down here. People in the lower class to be used or to be spent for entertainment. Middle class to be managed. What's the upper class? If they get money back, what are they doing? We just talked about it last one. They're doing what with it? Investing. See how they make some more money out of it. So that was a good one. Okay, the second one I picked out, this language. Okay, what's the difference between lower class language and middle class language? I could get some interesting answers here.
A lot more slang.
Slang, So, and the thing today is when they're writing papers, it kills me. Text lingo. Texting has killed. And you English teachers, I tell my kids, are you going to check for grammar? I'm like, what I know, yes I will. So, here's the capitalization. So, that's about it. So, I mean, if you don't do that, I'm probably not going to catch you, So, I know it's bad, right? So, but yes, casual language, text lingo, and, I think of this funny story, the coaches back here, a kid a few years ago, asking him some questions, and he was just cussing every other breath. I'm talking about, and I'm not saying just like, we think, a few little words, and we're like, hey, man, you got to watch it. What? I'm not cussing. But because he goes home and he hears this, and it's just normal speech, So, that right there really was an eye-opener. I thought, man, and then we read the book right after, and I always thought about that. But the casual language or inappropriate language, if you're in the middle class, it says that you tend to be a formal speaker, okay? Meaning, not so bad, not so long. I know we all struggle. I struggle sometimes too, using the slang. We live in the South, so most of our vocabulary is slang. So, but the language was a barrier, and I thought this was interesting. When you have parent contacts, okay, from somebody that is considered in poverty, who do you generally talk to? Mother or father? Mother? Okay?
Yeah, grandparents.
Our grandparents.
Grandparents.
Usually a grandmother, right? I thought this was interesting. And I just really noticed this morning as I was breezing over this. Family structure. Poverty tends to be matriarchal. Middle class tends to be patriarchal. Okay? Father and mother. Okay? Lower class, you tend to speak to a female, mother, grandmother. If you speak to anybody, even if you speak to anybody. So that's another topic there is involvement. We're not going to hit that today. And there's a whole nother list. I just picked 3. Okay, I just picked 3 to look at real briefly. Now I want to read you this short thing. Okay, hidden rules. Okay, hidden rules of classes. What are some of the hidden rules of schools? I just want to share this story with you. And I'm going to read, there's 3 paragraphs here, so just bear with me, but I thought this was a good story about hidden rules. And this was somebody had read Dr. Payne's book. And it starts out, on my very first day of school, so very long ago, there was no kindergarten. So my first day of school was in first grade. I was delirious with excitement. What would happen? Where would I sit? What would I eat? Where would we go play? My enthusiasm was dampened. When the first few minutes of my first day at school, I broke the hidden rule of school by not being in my assigned seat when the bell rang. I was so excited that I couldn't sit still and moved from seat to seat with a huge smile on my face and happiness in my heart. The teacher looked at me in an unfamiliar way and in a strong tone of voice said, "Why are you moving seat from seat? Find a seat, sit down." When someone breaks the hidden rule of the group, as I did, the first time it happens, people look at you funny. You know you did something wrong, but because hidden rules are unspoken, no one tells you what you did. In the first few weeks of school, we began to color. Having no experience with coloring or crayons, I noticed that my coloring sheets weren't as pretty as my friend sitting next to me. I thought her colored picture was beautiful. I leaned over to tell her and asked how she knew to color so beautifully. Just as I began sharing my coloring friend, the teacher walked by. The teacher looked at my work, then my friend's work. She told the other girl how wonderful her work was and looked at my work, then my friend's work again. She told me to be quiet and do a better job. I'd broken a second hidden rule again and had no idea what I'd done wrong or how to fix it. When someone breaks a hidden rule the second time, it is noticed. People in the group start to talk about you. Soon we began learning to read. Reading quickly became my favorite pastime. During reading class, we were placed in small groups with one student reading another reading story round robin style. I could read quickly and always wanted to know what happened next on the other pages. So when it was my turn to read, I was always on the wrong page. So that always gripes me as a teacher, but when I read this, I may have a different viewpoint. I broke my third hidden rule and was sent out of the room. The third time someone breaks a hidden rule, the person is often excluded from the group. For me, I thought my teacher didn't like me and was afraid to make a mistake. I became timid and shy in the classroom. Learning is about being willing to take a risk. As a student, if I'm afraid to make a mistake, it will hinder my learning. One way for students to learn the hidden rules is for teachers to directly teach the hidden rules of school. Another way to learn the hidden rules is through a relationship. Dr. James Comer tells us, no significant learning occurs without a relationship. In other words, students are motivated to learn through relationships. That's kind of what the last part of this is about, is how we teach students relationships, or the hidden rules through relationships. So how do we do that? What is the best way that we can teach hidden rules? Through what? I mean, it involves relationships, but we do what to the hidden rules for students to learn? We model them, okay? We model the ideas that we want them to learn through the way that we act and interact with everybody in our classroom. And yes, even that kid, you know, that comes to school, and this probably applies more to younger grades, but we still see the effects of this when they get up into our grades. They still hadn't quite, you know, caught on. Maybe because we kind of kicked them aside at the younger grades. I don't have any experience in younger grades, so I can't really tell you. I've been observing some elementary classrooms here the last few weeks, and it's just like, you know, it's a different world down there. Okay, so I'm glad I'm sitting way in the corner in the very back. But, you know, I couldn't do it. So, but as educators, we must teach students who live in poverty there are two sets of rules: the formal rules and these hidden rules. A good example they gave in the textbook, in the Payne book here, was when you get on you got an 8th grade male student, you get on to them for doing something, you know, disturbing your class, and you tell them, you know, hey, sit out in the hall, sit aside. What is their typical response? An 8th grade male student, you get on to them, you really think, you know, hey, I got them. What is their typical response? It just crawls under your skin.
Somebody else is talking.
Yeah.
Smart off or what? Smile, laugh. You know, they laugh it off. But that is their coping mechanism, according to Payne. You know, trying to shrug it off, trying to not look excluded from the group. You know, they got attention that maybe you're not getting at home. Does that excuse the behavior? No. But maybe there's a better way that we can deal with each student. You know, because each student is different. Now, I can't deal with this student over here the same way that I deal with him. That they react different. But sometimes that is a hard thing to do in situations. So, 2 things which help a person move out of poverty: education, which we're responsible for, and then relationships, which we should be responsible for. These 2 are tied together. You know, we should build relationships with students while they're in our classroom. 4 reasons that people leave poverty. I'm wrapping up here. Okay, it's too painful to stay. They have a vision or a goal. Key relationships, which I've bolded and underlined, and special talent or skill. Okay, now I think number 3 takes care of the rest of them, because as teachers, if we build a relationship and we give them some insight on how to achieve their goals and some ways to get out of poverty. They will learn that from us. You know, they may not remember what we taught them about the Civil War in 1861, but they will remember if we care about them and took that little extra time and maybe modeled certain ways to act. You know, appropriate ways to act, appropriate ways to speak. You know, appropriate ways to succeed in society. So, how many people? You know, I didn't come out of poverty. I didn't grow up in poverty. Now, some of you, somebody here may have. You may have made it out. I didn't grow up in a poverty state. I put my parents in middle class. But how many people do you know that truly made it out of poverty and are in the middle class? I mean, anybody think of five people, you know, that you went to school with maybe that got out of the class with their parents? I mean, could you spit it out real quick? You make it think for a while and make come a list. But it's tough for people to get out of poverty. Okay, it's tough for them to get out. They gotta have goals, they have visions, but all that comes from relationships. Because I went to school with a kid that was way down there. Okay, didn't have a mom or dad. He lived in a home, a group home. He went to college. He joined the military. He's got 2 computer science degrees now. That's a special breed. Okay, I mean, he had the drive, he had the motivation, but you don't see a lot of that. And I always use him as a story when I'm talking to my kids because that was a special case. Okay, and a big part of him though, when he came to Piedmont, where I went to high school, there was a group that looked after him and took care of him. And when he graduated, after graduation, he come out of the aisle, and I thought this was one of the coolest things. Everybody was meeting with their parents. Of course, he didn't have any parents. The whole booster club met with him, a group of parents, and they had him a car. They had bought him a car to send him off to college.
Wow.
And I thought, man, that made the kid's life, you know, because from that point on, I mean, he went out and joined the military. He got a family, you know, got a great job. He's married, his wife's got a great job, and he's doing well. But I can't think of many others like that. But I thought that was a great situation. So, in closing, to help kids that are in the lower class, in the poverty stage, you know, to move from poverty to middle class, one must give up relationships or achievements. Okay? Now, what does that mean? We see this a lot with kids. No matter how bad their mom or dad treats them, and we can think of kids, they're still their mom and dad, right? And so they have that tie of relationships, and that's why a lot of kids, they end up in the same class as their parents. But they have got to get past those negative relationships if they want to achieve for themselves. So who do they learn to achieve from? They're with us more than they are their parents. You know, as educators, coaches, we get them a little extra time. You know, bottom line, when it comes down to it, the way that we treat kids, you know, build relationships, trumps, and that sounds bad, trumps what we teach them out of a book. I mean, in the long run, you know. How many of you can remember what your 6th grade teacher taught you, but you remember how they treated you? Okay, so that kind of sums up these first 2 chapters, I think, the importance of positive relationships. So that is all I have. That's just a little summary, and I told you to be short and sweet. So anybody got any comments on any topics that we made today, or about the book, or anything? Done? All right. Thank y'all.